Welcome. Today I'm going to be doing some film processing live, and I'm going to take you through the entire process. If you have any questions, ask them to me. It feels kind of weird actually just talking to myself, but I am looking at the comments. So first of all, what we need is some film. So I've got a container there on the side in my processor. That's a Jobo CP5 processor, but it's actually, you don't necessarily need to spend out on that. You can actually do this just purely very cheap at home. That just adds a little bit of convenience for me. So first of all, you're needing film. This is 120 film. This is a dummy roll which has already been exposed. So basically, I'm able to show you in the light, but you start off with a dart bag. Rena, if you could just let me know that you can hear me. So what that is a black bag that you can actually put your arms in. And what that does is it protects your film from the outside light, which means that you don't actually have to have a dark room. So you also need a container of some sort. That's one of mine. I've got one in there at the moment, which I've preloaded with film, just purely because it needs to get up to temperature for colour film, whereas on black and white film it's actually it's less dependent on temperature. So I'll show you in daylight what I have to do, because basically you load on to a spool which looks something not too dissimilar to that, and on your film, when you open it up, you have your black backing paper. Rena, if you have any questions at any point, just pop them up and I will answer them there and then. Any questions are fine. Right, so this is 120 film. So on the back you have a paper backing which stops the light from getting to the film. And then underneath you have the actual film itself. Obviously this is pre-exposed, so I can actually show you what goes on. So while you're in the bag, what you're trying to do is you're separating the film from the backing paper. Remember, all of this is done by touch, so you end up practicing with a few dead rolls until you get to the end point there. When you get to that point, you'll see a little bit of tape which is connecting the two, and the colour film will naturally curl. So all you need to do is just separate the two, then the backing paper will just disappear. We'll throw that in the bin. Again, like I said, everything's happening inside of this dark bag, but just so that you can see what's actually going on, I'm showing it in the light. So while you're in the dark bag, then you need to feel your way around and start to load the spool with your film, and then you gently just push it around. And it loads on and self winds. Occasionally you'll get little kinks and everything. you just give it a little bit of a shake, and you then move it around even further. So that goes on like so. And so what you end up with is the film loaded on the spool, ready to be developed. This particular spool can hold 2 films. The one in the container there also holds 2 films. So temperature is the critical thing, the difference between black and white and colour film. Besides the chemicals as well, they're both similar processes. But you need to actually, for colour film, you need to have the temperature set. Depending on which chemical you're using, it's usually around the 30 degrees Celsius mark. So this machine here, the CP5 by Jobo, basically what that is in there is a water bath, which at the bottom of that has got a heating element, and all that's doing is keeping the temperature constant of the water, which in turn keeps the chemicals that are here and that keeps them at a constant temperature for you to work at. You can do this at home with your bath or a bowl that you put in hot water. You just need to be a bit more careful about keeping the temperature as you want. So you'd want a bowl of hot water to warm it up and a bowl of cold water to cool it down. The question was, what happens if the temperature is off? Well, what happens on the colour is it actually needs a certain temperature for the chemical to work. So what usually happens is you'll end up very underexposed because it hasn't had time to actually work its chemical reaction with the film. You can speed it up by actually increasing the temperature as well, but you tend to go through more chemical quicker that way because it's more violent reaction. Are you good with that one? Okay, cool. So next up, what we've got this is the container that I use most regularly. And inside that currently is 2 active pieces of film. I can actually lift this off, and inside you will see what is basically a light trap device. Hi. we have somebody just joined us, so I'll hold on for a sec. Hi, Anne. Can you hear me? And if you're watching this in your top left-hand corner, you will see you will actually see a chat icon, and there's a chat symbol just in there, and then that will open up the chat on the right-hand side. Not getting anything. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on. So what I was saying before is inside of this development tank, it's basically a baffle that stops light from getting in. So inside there is a little stirring device which will actually spin the spool inside around, and there's a spout that will pour down, and what happens is it goes down and fills up from the bottom. So the film's never actually exposed to any light while you're pouring the chemicals in and out. So that basically you let that get up to temperature. So you need to have the container at the right temperature as well, because then that just helps everything stay at the right temperature. The other advantage with the Jobo is that it will turn it for me. But like you saw, there is the little spooler thing, and that will actually let you turn it so that you can agitate the film within the chemical. So as long as you've got a way to actually keep the chemicals at a certain temperature, then you don't need that. You could actually get away with a bowl with, say, a fish tank heating element inside, which would do the job just fine. It just means it's more manual, that's all. So we're almost ready for the actual developing of the film now. Are you still with me, Rena? It is, for those people watching, it is, Rena just said, so far you make it look easy. And it is. There's not really anything hard about it. All you need to do is just have a nice methodical approach to it. So the next thing is we'll be pouring the chemicals in, and those chemicals, each stage, on this particular one, there's four stages to it. So you've got these two are the developer, these two fix it, that one's what they call a stop bath, which stops everything, and then there's a water bath just to wash all the chemicals off the film. But each of those needs to be for a certain amount of time, and because I like to have an easy life, on my Android device I have an app which allows me to set separate chemical times, and will actually tell me when to change the chemicals, etc. So if you're ready, then I am ready too. Awesome. So I'm going to take my headphones off. And we're actually going to start to pour the chemicals. So as you can see on the app, there's a start button. And it's designed essentially for black and white photography, but you can put in your own. So I've programmed in what I need for color. So right, just do a quick temperature check a second. It's been on for a couple of hours now, so I'm not expecting it to fluctuate too much. So I'm just using a bog standard food temperature gauge, or thermometer even. And what I'm wanting is around about the 30 degrees C mark, which I've got. So what I'll do is I'll take this one off. And I'll pour in the first chemical. although I'm using 2 tubes, it's actually one chemical that I'm pouring in. It's just I've got other chemicals in the other compartments. So I'll pop that stirrer back in, just give it a little twist to get rid of the air bubbles, and then I'll pop it back on the turner and start my timer. So you'll probably hear it in the background, but basically what the timer is doing, just trying to so yeah, that's now counting down, and it actually tells you when to be turning it. So you probably hear that in the background. If I shoot a lot of film, answer is I try to. I prefer the look. I love using it. I love the fact that it makes you slow down. The particular film that I'm shooting, that I'm developing here, I shot on this camera. Okay, so if I was doing this by hand, right now I will have stopped actually turning the little spindle inside, but because I'm doing this on the machine, it's just going to constantly rotate. It goes all the way around, stops, and then turns and comes all the way back again. It just creates an even spread of the chemical over the actual thing. Rena, did you watch the pre-video of what I was shooting? Awesome. Yeah, it's my goddaughter, and she loves being in front of the camera. So what you hear in the background then is this coming back up again and telling me when to start turning it. So this app is actually for film development, and every so often you need to keep the app going. So that's still turning nicely, and we're literally, it's 9 minutes 30 for the first step, and then we swap out the chemicals. So this would be the time where you go make yourself a cup of tea or coffee, or in my case, have a drink of Coke. Do you have any questions, Rena? We've got some time to kill. We're on 3 minutes now. So what happened there, as is always the case with live, is basically the machine that I use, this particular container isn't for it, and so the glue's just come loose then, and luckily I heard it drop, so I've now switched to doing it manual, which I've done before. Luckily there's enough chemical in there to actually deal with it the way that I need to. No, Rena's just asked whether or not there's any damage to the film. I'm hoping not. At most, there's probably a risk to maybe it not being filled up as much as I'd like. So there may be a little section across one side of the film which isn't fully developed, but I think there's plenty of developing fluid in there. So from here on, everything's going to be done by hand. So you can take out that entire machine and replace it with your bowl that you're using to keep everything at the same temperature. So just to get ready, I'll pop a little funnel in there just so that I'm not tipping it in the wrong places. And can you hear the ticking in the background, Rena? Rena just said it's really old school, just like her dad did it. And yeah, I love it. So I don't mind doing it by hand. The only bit that I did worry about was this top coming off. If that top had come off, then all the chemical would have spilled out into the water, and there would have been nothing. The film would have been wasted. So now I just basically turn the actual tank when it tells me, just to make sure. I put the top back on, and we'll do what's called inversion. So I suspect the film will be fine. The top was on it, so it's not popped off. There's no film loss, so we should be fine. Because the container's still in the water, it means it's still keeping at temperature. It's the bath that keeps everything at 30 degrees. Just check for questions. No questions so far. You got your cola also. So this app is called Massive Dev, and basically on the app there's a huge list of different developer types, different film types. Like I said, it's more designed for black and white, but because you can add your own in, you can also put in your color times. And what I do like about it is it's darkroom friendly, so you could actually turn off the light, and I should have done that right from the start. So that tells me when to stir again. So we've got about a minute left on the developer. And then the other two sections are pretty fast then. So 30 seconds left on that one. So when it gets to about 10 seconds, I'll start to pour it out. Just like to give it a little bit of a stir just before I do that. Oh, I didn't realise it was there. Yeah, I forgot I programmed in an extra 30 seconds on it. It's live TV. Right, that's now telling me it's time to tip the chemical out. So I'll do this so that you can see it. Here's a lovely colour. With a bit of a funky smell. So straight away we're into the next chemical. So I'll start the timer on that one. Quick little spin. And then I will do inversion on it. So this one's for about 6 minutes. So I've got a little bit on my hands then. So just so I don't actually stain my hands, I'm just going to give them a quick wash and I'll be back. And it's just I'll read this out for the video so people know what I'm doing. Sorry, my first time on Google Hangouts. It's not very good English, but your explaining process is very good and it's easy to understand. Thank you. That's now telling me it doesn't drop too much because the container's been in the water, been heating up for all that time. Just so everyone else is caught at Ringas, am I worried about the temperature will be off when I take out the container from the water? And the actual container itself is heated to the right temperature, and has been, and keeps its temperature pretty well. So previous to the Google Hangout starting, that was rotating in the warm water for at least an hour, so it doesn't drop that much. But what I failed to say was these chemicals are out of date, so it's more of an experiment. These particular rolls, which is why I didn't use it on a customer shoot. It's why I used it on a shoot with my goddaughter. There's no reason why it shouldn't actually work, but this is the first one for me, so I just wanted to test these particular chemicals to see what they're like when they're out of the date. Rena just said the experiments are the most fun. I agree. So stirring still. So the chemicals that I'm using for this is a C41, which is colour, and it's by can't remember who it's by now. It's one of those moments when everything is Tetanol. You can buy a kit for roughly £15. I don't know how that works out in terms of euros and dollars and all that stuff. I think it's around $22, and that gives you enough chemical to do around 12 to 15 rolls, but that only lasts a month. Black and white is a lot cheaper. There's different chemicals for that, and chemicals that I use for black and white personally is Superol, and all of the chemicals that I'd need for that set me back £15, so around about $22, and that's probably enough chemicals for 2 years. So black and white is definitely a cheaper way of doing it. It's just not many people process colour or are afraid to, and I just want people to see how easy it is and how inexpensive it is. Do you have any questions, Anne? Just waiting for the awesome. Okay, that's now telling me it's time to empty. Can be a little bit messy. A little bit of chemical went into the water, so I will need to clean that one at some point. And I've got my third chemical. Temperature's not actually too bad on this one. And all this is a fixer. Stop bath, sorry. So I'll pop that in. So like I said, the actual temperature of this isn't too bad, but what you're not getting right now is the smell. There is a bit of a smell in the air from the chemicals. It's completely normal. I haven't gotten harmed by it, so it's not overpowering or anything like that. But you definitely need to have a environment where when you've got the window open. So this section doesn't take very long. This one's at, I think, 6 minutes. How are we doing for questions? Well, Rena said no questions have been very clear. Thank you. I'm hoping that's coming across well. But even just general questions that you may have, I'm also happy to answer. All I'm going to do right now is, as you can see, I overfilled that chemical. I'm just going to tip a little bit into there. So I'm just catching up on the stirring. So we're at 2 minutes 17 now. There's only one stage left after this, and that's a water bath, which I will then tip into the sink. So I'm going to do a little inversion of that. Rena's just asked, how long have I been doing photography? I'm actually 3 years in this week. Yeah, 3 years that I've been since I first picked up the camera. So we're about halfway through on this stage. After that, there's a 1 minute water bath. Rena's being very nice to me at the moment. See what? My knowledge level is much higher than the 3 years that I've been doing it. Just purely because I have Asperger's syndrome, and it allows me to learn stuff at a much faster rate than somebody else would. You can see one of my pieces there. So we're at 5 minutes now. So 2 more minutes in this chemical. Just invert it again, just in case we haven't got enough. So what you will see is the entire process. So today's developing side. Yesterday I done the behind the scenes of the actual shooting of the film. After this, when it's dry and I've scanned it in, I will go through my Lightroom process that I will use for this, and then onto a fine art picture. Because we took some very pretty pictures. Okay, so the final step is the water. It's going to be a Windows Classic. It's going to be a different hangout. It's all going to be separate hangouts because after this comes out, it needs at least half an hour to dry. So you will get to see it very shortly. So I'm just starting the timer for the wash, and then eventually it's all going to create one main blog on the Photography Junkie site. So once this is done, I'll disappear a second while I take this down the sink, which will be done in 20 seconds. And then I'll come back in and I will open this up, and you'll see whether or not this whole thing's worked or not. So give me a second and I'll go tip this in the sink. You'll hear that leak anytime now. The editing was, Andres asked whether or not the editing was today, and no, the editing will come after this. So basically, the content of this, which I'm about to pull out now, is always the nervous bit for me. Like, has it worked, hasn't it worked? I'll pull this out, and then these will get hung to dry, assuming everything's worked okay. And then when they're dry, I will scan them in, and once they're scanned in, and then I will do the edit. So, opening it up. Are you excited as me? So I think we've got something on there. I think we managed to do it. So what I'll do is I'll point the camera up for a second. Pop the other one back in a sec. To the light. This is very difficult to do. There we go. So there is definitely stuff on there.
We need to turn.
I had a couple misfires, as you can see.
I don't think that screen has a.
So that's the first one.
But that may not
I'm
matter.
happy with that.
Let's see.
That's now hanging up. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Jay. Sorry we're late.
You literally come in on the reveal.
Cool.
Uh-oh, something just happened with my screen. I have nothing left on the screen.
Okay.
So yeah, that's that one. Literally just come out. It's still wet.
See anything?
Mhm.
Okay. So everything's good?
Yeah.
Okay.
You coming?
So that one's now.
Yeah, that works.
That was now actually hanging up to dry as well. So when they're dry, I will scan them in. So in terms of the actual live broadcast, that's it now. Thank you for watching, and everyone stay in, and we'll chat